Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Consciousness Collective podcast. I am Leb, your host. I am a metaphysical practitioner, a channeler, a consciousness coach. I wear many hats, but this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've been feeling very called to do this as well. And if you are seeing me, you probably know me from my community on TikTok, and some just various other places that I am active. What this podcast is going to be about? Well, there's going to be a number of things that I plan on doing with it. Number one, I plan on having a number of various practitioners, readers, psychics, just those in the metaphysical, the spiritual, the consciousness kind of realm, to come on and share some of their stories, share some of their visions, their ideas of where we are going, what the collective needs. There will also probably be episodes I'm feeling some call to do some long-form channeling. There's various councils that I've been familiarizing myself with, working with, and that's definitely something that has been coming through. There's also just the possibility of me going on my little rants. My little rambles. If you are familiar with my live broadcasts on TikTok, well, you're kind of familiar with what I'm talking about there. So, with this episode, I believe I'm going to start off with pretty much just that, going on a little bit of a ramble, tell you a little bit about what I'm about, my beliefs, maybe a little bit about where those things came from, just some of the lessons I've learned and the healings that I've done, that I've been through to get to this point. One of the first truths that I came across, or that I came upon on my spiritual journey, is the subjectivity of both reality and truth. And yes, that is what I mean, is both truth and reality are subjective. They are determined by you, by the one experiencing them. And that is something that I don't think that other people can, take away from you, that you can, that you can discount. Like, so one example would be that nobody can really tell you what you have or have not experienced. And that is largely what our reality is made up of, is our conscious interaction with the experiences that we have, whether or not those only happen in your head or they are a collectively co-created experience. So certainly, like, there are many things in reality that we all can kind of agree on, that we all experience the same. A lot of these things we would see as like the laws of physics. I would postulate that a lot of that has to do simply with our beliefs, with our acceptance of how things are. Because I believe that reality is a consciousness interface system. That reality is something that we build on as we grow and experience life, how we fit things together. In a way, we all build a model of reality in our own minds, just through our experiences, through what we are observing, through our perspective. And with that, it's impossible to fully explain to somebody else your understanding of reality. It's kind of like there's a metaphor of building a car in your garage. Like, you can take out pieces, you can maybe show people picture, you can describe it to them, but if you can't bring them into that garage, that living room. I meant to say living room. I'm not sure if I actually said garage, but you know what? Hey, whatever. I meant to say living room. Building a car in your living room. And if you can't bring people in to see that, they never really can have the full understanding of what you've got going on in there. And your own model of reality is just that way as well. It is something that you can never really fully explain. I think that we all have a much deeper understanding of what that looks like to us, or a much deeper understanding than we can explain, in words. And so in doing that, so the one thing that I don't know, like, I don't claim to be different or special by any means, but one of the things that I guess makes me a little bit different, or that I feel makes me a little bit different. Yeah, see, you see what I did there? I said I don't claim to be, and then I did whatever. We're all special and different. We all have our own versions of reality. For me, in putting that together, in building that, I have tried to build a much more all-inclusive version of reality, as in, it's all possible. Anything is possible. I believe that. And with that, that is part of where my idea, my concept of the subjectivity of reality comes from. Because if what I'm saying isn't a part of your reality, that's perfectly fine. That's it. So there is a platform built in there of simply acceptance of what other people believe, what other people feel, because I am not going to deny you of that. It is not my place to tell you what is and isn't right, or what is and isn't true. That is for you to decide. That is something that is decided through your own intuition, through your own heart center, which is an important point that I can get to in a little bit. Yeah, maybe now. I don't really know. If you can't tell, I haven't fully planned out this whole episode, so I'm not sure exactly where I'm going to go, but that is the ramble. That is kind of the nature of how I work. It is an interesting thing. I feel, so I'm a reflector in human design. And what that means is that I am constantly absorbing energy from other places. I don't have a defined energy center. So it is a little bit difficult for me to just kind of come on and start talking. I need a little bit of direction, a little bit of where to go. And I'll probably be working that into future podcasts. Then that's just fine. That is just fine. So that's also part of why I want to do interviews with other practitioners, just to get other perspectives and other views, because as I say, we're all building our own idea of reality, our own model of reality within our own brains. And so if we compare and contrast that to other people, and it's not for the sake of saying, hey, this is right, this is wrong, like this is true, this isn't, it is more for a chance to, or an opportunity to add to and to expand your own reality, your own experience. So something that I think I kind of touched on, that I believe that reality is a consciousness interface system, essentially. Yeah, that one's getting a little bit deep. There's a lot to that. And basically, it is how our consciousness, how our singular aspect of awareness perceives and translates the energies that are going on around us. And I say energy not in just a very esoteric or metaphysical sense, but also in a very real sense of everything is energy. Everything has a vibrational frequency, and we are constantly interacting with all of those things. And the way that we interact, the way that we observe, the way that we perceive, the judgments that we have, the beliefs that we filter things through can change what that is that we are perceiving, that we are receiving. And within that perception, within that way of interacting and observing, that is how we are building the reality that is around us. Now, I do believe that everything has a consciousness, or that everything is an aspect of consciousness. Maybe not in quite the same way that you would think of yourself as conscious, but there is a consciousness to everything. Consciousness is the faculty through which we observe, are aware, and interact with our surroundings. And if you use that as a basis, I mean, that's a very it's a close synopsis of like a Webster's or an Oxford Dictionary definition. But in using that, like, everything around us interacts with its environment in one way or another, even if it's just a rock just sitting there in the dirt. A rock gets wet when it rains. So, okay, that is allowing it to interact on a very much more simple level than we would consider how we understand things or how we understand consciousness. But it is there, and there is an interaction. That's an interesting ramble topic, if you ask me. Okay, let's get into some a little bit deeper, a little bit bigger thoughts, bigger beliefs. The idea that we are all one, or perhaps touching on a little bit of Hermetic philosophy of the all. So, my understanding, and again, you're welcome to have your own, this is just a sampling, is that we are the universe experiencing itself. And part of the way that I look at that is in the, if we want to go all Genesis story, in the beginning, there was pure potentiality. There was this all consciousness. And again, I go to the Hermetic philosophy of there's nothing outside of the all, and that the all is mental. I like to say that the all is consciousness. And within that consciousness, without existence itself, without creation, it was pure potentiality. But when you have, or when you are pure potentiality, there's no experientiality. And so what creation is, from my perspective, my belief, is that consciousness splitting itself up into all of the possibilities that it could be to experience itself. And that, I mean, if we go into our more scientific understanding of the universe, of how things started off with very simple molecules, simple atoms of hydrogen and helium, and getting more and more complex, that kind of fits into it, of just getting down to as base elements as it can, and then starting to build upon that. Now, when we look at that, like from that perspective, there is an element of expansion there, of expansion and individuation that is going on. And this ties into a little bit of my understanding of like a higher dimensional perspective on morality, in that to experience itself, the universe has had to split itself into individual aspects of consciousness. And these can look like, well, just about everything that I say just about, into everything that we see, everything that we interact with. And so there is this, has been this constant consciousness expansion and individuation going on. And we here, especially in this realm on this planet, are kind of at a far point of that, in that we are very disconnected from what I would call source, or from the, God consciousness, the all consciousness. Right, we have a very distinct sense of like, I am this, and I am not you, and I am, but what is changing and what has been going on is, for time immemorial, basically, immemorial, is that as that expansion is taking place, there's also the contraction. There's that pull back, to bring those aspects of consciousness back together, back to the all, back to that universal consciousness, as we might call it. I know I'm throwing out a lot of different terms for kind of the same thing, but there's a little bit of a point to that. So there is just this constant kind of expansion contraction. I mean, it's a yin and yang, or it's even one could even go into masculine feminine. There's a number of things there, though, that we look at as right or wrong, and this is a difficult one to get into, because I don't believe that, like, from a higher perspective like that, there is such thing as right and wrong the way that we understand it. Is still just the universe experiencing itself more and more. What we view as right and wrong, we see that individuation process, and we end up seeing it as a much more either egotistical or self-centered, or just those things, those actions that don't seem to align people together. They pit people against each other, or they pit ideas against each other. They pit just groups and energies against, like, that there is a fighting a contrasting force, like there is a mentality of one cannot exist, or one that they can't exist in the same place. Whereas when we see things, more like what we would call benevolence or altruism, or, the good things in life, that is going back towards that collective consciousness, towards that universal consciousness, towards that being one with all, and understanding that everything is just varying aspects, different individual aspects of the universal consciousness that is experiencing itself. How did I do there? Did that get a little deep, a little heavy for anybody? Okay, cool. Well, as you may have noticed, may have heard, I dropped the term collective consciousness in there. That is something that I believe that we are working our way towards rather quickly in terms of our human and spiritual evolution. That is where the namesake of the consciousness collective has kind of come from, because that is the direction that I would like to inspire people to work towards, and let them know that we can work towards that together. That is also part of the reasoning for the rambles and the rants that I am going to go on, just kind of getting more of an understanding of what is out there, and that nothing is mutually exclusive of anything else. It is to promote, to enhance, to awaken that sense of interconnectivity, because I believe that the disconnected feeling is the root of so much of what we would call problems, especially when it is relating to, like, mental and spiritual health. I am somebody who has struggled with, dealt with depression and addiction, things of that nature, my entire life. And I came to a conclusion quite some time ago, actually, while I was first in an outpatient treatment program for alcoholism and addiction, that addiction is a spiritual disease. It is a disease caused by a feeling of disconnection, a feeling of purposelessness, kind of a hollowness, some might describe it as, and not really being able to find the enjoyment, the meaning in things, and looking to patch that through whatever we can. And, substance abuse becomes basically like a Band-Aid a Band-Aid on a bullet wound is how I used to like to put it. I did do a little bit of counseling in this realm not long after my time in outpatient treatment. So it is really a search for meaning, a search for purpose in, I wouldn't necessarily say the wrong places, but I will say rather ineffective places. Because there is so much that we look outside of ourselves to find those things like purpose, meaning, happiness, all of those things. We maybe it is kind of a societal conditioning kind of thing. I'm not really sure, but it's like our default is to try to find that outside of ourselves. But that happiness, that contentment, that just feeling of purpose and meaning is not a set of outside conditions. And we are not taught how to explore within and how to accept ourselves and to be able to find that love for ourselves, or that we can make that choice. Yep, that's right. That choice to feel fulfilled, to feel happy, to feel like you have found your purpose. Now, I feel like that statement has a possibility of ruffling some feathers. Well, I will tell you this, that with as I was kind of saying about the societal conditioning, part of that is that we are conditioned to not see that as a choice, to not understand that. And so the choice, the decision to not feel that happiness, that connectedness, is made subconsciously. It is made through our limiting beliefs. It is made through our lack of higher awareness, our lack of connecting to a higher mind, the higher self, the higher consciousness. And that choice is kind of, we make that on an unconscious level, and we have to bring it to a conscious level to be able to change it. And that is largely what the healing or the awakening or the just ascending process is about. It is about bringing the unconscious and the subconscious to the conscious mind so that we can make those decisions and that we can truly, truly start stepping into our power, our ability to create, to manifest, to build our own reality outside instead of building it from the outside inward, starting off by, as we all do, of looking at all the things or observing all the things that are outside of us and building that reality on the inside. That we can, if we make a conscious shift, we start building our reality on the inside. And that gets projected outwards, and that starts building the reality that we are living in. It is one of the greatest gifts of creation that we have. As I had mentioned, us all being individual aspects of the all, of the universal consciousness, of the creator, the source, God, whatever you would like to call it. We all have those aspects within us. And that is part of what we are exploring and coming back into that higher level of consciousness, that more unified understanding and understanding how creation truly works, how consciousness is not just a way of observing and understanding, but it is also a way of interacting and building our reality, our world around us. That, to me, is the awakening, the ascension process. Now, of course, there is an aspect to that. We are always co-creating with all of those other aspects of universal consciousness that are within our reality, that we are working with. A little distracted. My headphones just died. That's interesting. I'm just going to go on without. So if you're wondering if you're watching on YouTube, because I do plan on putting this on YouTube at some point, that's what I'm doing there. So there's an aspect, of course, of co-creation. But even within that, we all have the possibility, the opportunity of what to accept into our reality and what not to. That is another way that we continue to build. Now, that co-creation aspect is important. I think that is a part of our next step, is to realize that we can co-create things together. So if you imagine we have all of these individual aspects of that creator, that source consciousness coming together and creating for the purpose of the greater whole, for the purpose of what's best for the collective. That is what we are stepping into. That is a part of this waking up into 5D consciousness that we are going through, that a lot of people have mentioned, have talked about, or if this is the first time you've heard it, maybe we can go into that maybe in a little bit, maybe on another episode. I have no idea how long I'm going to ramble on this for. But stepping into that higher dimensional consciousness. So what that means to me is just as you increase in dimensions, the biggest difference that we would see from our perspective is a much greater interconnectivity between things, and understanding that there are dimensions on which we are, not only we are all one, but we are all much more connected than we currently know. Because that is part of the experience, that is part of what we are here in this three-dimensional reality to experience, is that limitation of connection. And part of the challenge as that, expansion and individuation, and then coming back to the unification. That is part of our challenge. That is what we are here to experience and to do, if there is, such thing as a purpose, a point. And that is something that I would like to be working to promote. That I would like to be not necessarily like guiding, or definitely not leading by any means, people back to, but to be shining some light, some beacon, so that people can navigate it on their own, because it is like that whole personal aspect to the journey is important. Like, we are all here to bring certain unique experiences, unique observations, unique truths back to the whole, back to the all, so that the all can continue to expand and grow its understanding of itself. So it is important to find your own journey. It is important to walk your own path. One thing that has come to me in a number of channels and meditation sessions is that you are the path unfolding. You are the path unfolding itself. You are here to experience and to find a way that nobody else has and nobody else can. That is what you are here for. And I do believe that it is part of my mission, part of my chosen path, shall we say, to help open people up to stepping into that more consciously by having more awareness, more awareness, yes, of the things that are going on around them, the things that influence them, and the things that they can influence. And taking that conscious responsibility, that choice to do that with intention, purpose. Because that's a big part, in my opinion, once again, of what we are here to do. And that is part of why I like to consider myself, or why I call myself, a consciousness coach. That's what I want to help people to achieve. Now, if that is something that you can get behind, if that is something that sounds intriguing to you, or if that is something that maybe you just want to argue with some guy on the internet about, cool. That's all fine. I do plan on doing plenty more of these episodes. I'll probably get a little bit more organized as I go. I do have actually a fairly sizable list going already of different practitioners that would be willing to come on and have an interview and discuss topics like this. So, places that you can find me. I do run a Discord server known as the Consciousness Collective Discord. Wherever this podcast gets posted, I will be sure to put a link to that in the description. I can also be found on both TikTok and Instagram at LebU of 42, so LEBUOF 42. And that also happens to be my email, lebuof42 at gmail.com. And I know some of you, if you're coming from my TikTok community, you may know the story there, but I may save that one for another podcast, another time. We shall see. Other than that, thank you guys very much for joining me for my very first ramble on a podcast, the very first episode of the Consciousness Collective podcast. I am Leb. So much love, light, and blessings to you.